الثالثة راح تعلى السكيورتي أعلى إلى أن تصل للدائرة الرابعة المركز. هنا بس سكيورتي مقارنة بالبريشن تكون كلش قليلة. فشيء عكسي هو بين البريسيشن وبين السكيورتي. كل ما تعلى السكيورتي كل ما يقل البريسيشن، كل ما يعلى البريسيشن كل ما تقل السكيورتي. Thank you.
Thank you. And there is a relationship between information security and information privacy. Security means technology to ensure information protection. Concept of privacy goes beyond security. You know that privacy, it's not just for computer, for information. The privacy is in all the aspects of our life. For example, we know that we mustn't ask some questions that are private from someone. For example, how old are you? What's your salary? It's the privacy. It's beyond security. Ability of individuals to control the term under which their personal information is acquired and used. For example, in the mobiles, the privacy part means, for example, the location service, because the location services show the exact location of you and your mobile, and maybe you don't want some applications have access to your location. It's a privacy. Or the contacts in your mobile, for example, the personal information. You don't want anyone to see. You want your privacy. Preventing storage of personal information and ensuring appropriate use of personal information. When a site has cookies, for example, you know that the information may be used with some, for example, some sites or some applications. Well, so here we see that the privacy, I will explain again. The first is ability of individuals. It means you let someone to control the terms under which their personal information is acquired. For example, when you go into a site, it asks you if you let the cookies to be installed on your system, for example, or you can select which parts it's okay for you. But I don't know my husband's passports and details of his phone book. And it's very bad today because there is some face recognition system, fingerprint, and etc.
Can I translate, دكتور؟ ما أدري نستغل الوقت الدكتورة ما هذا. أخوان بالنسبة هنا هذا السلايد يشرح العلاقة بين الأمن وبين الخصوصية. الأمن يقول هي السكيورتي تكنولوجي هو تقنية لضمان الحماية، بس البريفيسي يقول يتغطى هذا المفهوم، يعني كأنما السكيورتي جزء من البريفيسي. مثلا القدرة على المعلومات، قدرتك انت على التحكم بمعلوماتك الشخصيه، اللي استاذ ماجد خوش مثل ضرب لنا احنا مال زوجاتنا كلها تعرف موبايلنا وشغلاتنا وهذه. ضحكت الدكتوره عاشت ايدك. هذا المبدا الاول، القدره على التحكم ببياناتك الشخصيه. ثانية منع خزن البيانات الشخصية. بالنسبة للأستاذ زيد خويا قالت لك هي بأنه بنفس الحقل ممكن الاسم النيم كذا والهذا، وواحد من الحقول هو السلري، هذه أنت كشفتها، لكن هي راح توصلك لمعلومات دقيقة. وهو هذا الاستخدام المناسب للبيانات الشخصية. ولذلك يقول هنا اللبنة الأساسية، الأمان هو اللبنة الأساسية للخصوصية. ثانك يو دكتور.
Thank you. um, I should send my husband to Iraq. Actually, my husband's job is making devices for amusement parks. You know, the fun fair, some devices in the parks, amusement parks. And I think 5 years ago or much, he came to Iraq in city of Helle, and they built some parks, some amusement devices. But he didn't give the culture of you to give all the passwords to me. I must send him again to Iraq. Well, thank you. And the security is a required building block for privacy. To have privacy, you should have security too. Discretionary access control based on granting and revoking privileges. As I said before, we have three main methods, basic methods to have the security. There are many methods, but the three of them are the base methods and the main methods for these. One is discretionary access control. So we call it DAC or DAC. Two levels for assigning privileges to use a database system. We have account level and relation or table level. For example, we have account level. It means examples is create, drop, alter, modify, select privileges. Not defined for SQL2, the BMS vendors decide. I will explain it in the upcoming session, maybe 2 or 3 sessions later. And relation or table level defined for SQL2 access matrix method. I will discuss it also in the, I don't know, maybe 2 sessions later. But I will give you an example to have overall information of this. In this method, in DAC method, which you may use it before in the database systems, I don't know, maybe at work or in the bachelor, maybe you have this one too. You can define users as you do in, for example, in the Windows or any operating system. You can define some users. For example, user 1, user 2, user 3. You can define some users in the database system. Then we go to the, for example, we say there are some tables here. Here we have some tables, and you as admin of system, you can define access to this information. For example, you say user 1 can do select in this information. It means that user 1 just can see information in this table. Or some user can create new tables. It means that the user can change the schema, change the tables of the system, can drop a system. It means when you drop a table, it means you delete the table. All information about table. For example, the definition of table and the records that are stored in that table. All of them will be deleted. We have some, for example, some versions, different versions of SQL as any other information, as any other programming languages, for example. SQL2 usually refers to the second generation of the SQL, and similar to SQL, but it's a small definition, small differences between them. SQL is a standard in ANSI, you know, and it's a base programming language for query languages and have many standards. After SQL Server had presented for the writing queries in the SQL, we have some. Let me write it here to you. Here I will.
بهاي السلايد هو
Yes.
Yes, دكتور.
Here I will write there. You want to explain?
Yes, Doctor, I need to explain the slide for my student.
Yes. Welcome.
توفير الوصول يعتمد على سماحيات الضمان، يعني المنح والسحب الصلاحيات. هنا يتحدث عن الصلاحيات. اكو عندنا ليفلات 2 من السماحيات، اما يكون حسب الاكونت ليفل اللي هو من الويندوز، يعني انت عندك كم يوزر بالويندوز، من تدخل الويندوز تعرف يوزر 1 2 3 وكل ما تعطي اليوزر نيم والباسورد مالته. زين، هذا عنده امكانيه يسوي الاعازات اللي ذكرتها اللي هي بالدي دي ال ديفينشن مال اس كيو ال، الكرييت، الدروب، الالتر، الموديفاي، الكلام. زين، الثانيه اللي هي تعرفها الاس كيو ال. الاس كيو ال هم ينشئ عنده يوزر نيم وباسورد بجدول اللي راح تجي هسه توضحها دكتور. ثانك يو دكتور.
Yes. Here, I think maybe in 1992, I tried to find it, but I couldn't. Yes, Mr. Majid. Yes, in the configure, yes, you can define who can have access to what and how exactly, as you say. In the first versions of SQL, we had basic accesses to the information and other things. Then in 1992, I think, there was another level of SQL, another version, newer version of SQL. There was some small changes actually. I always say to my students that you can write any query with any of the SQL versions that are presented in this recent, for example, 20 years. The small and simple queries, I mean. But there are some small differences. I'm not sure. I cannot tell. I think it's some of the differences in join operation, for example, differences I say between SQL and SQL2. Small changes. has made. Some is in join operations. For example, how the join operation is run. For example, some of them is in access control. And we say I will give you all of them. Today, the SQL that we are using is much here in the standards of SQL2. We just call it SQL, but it's the standard of SQL2, and you can define who can have access to what. What's the difference between these two parts? Let me go to whiteboard because it's very some. I want to give you. Here is the example from the previous session. For example, here. Here is one. In the basic SQL, when admin needed to give privileges to the users, the admin in the basic just can say this one. For example, user 1 can create a table, or user 2 can see table, for example, the table 2, or user 3 can update, not this one, just tables. Or user 4 can alter tables. Alter tables means he or she can add a column, add a field, add an attribute to a table. Yes. And now, in the more expert way, you can tell, for example, user 1 can update table 1 and cannot delete from table 1. It's specific. User 1 can update table 1 and cannot delete from table 1. And if user 1 can give these privileges to another one. Who says this? Admin. The admin of system, the admin of the database system, admin defines this. It's very bad. Admin of system defines this privilege, and the admin can say that user 1 can pass these privileges to another user 2. Then it can be done in the SQL2. Yes, can add, but it cannot be removed. Yes. First of all, but add by admin, but maybe user 1 can give just this privileges that he or she has to another person, another user. Well,
اوكي دكتور كان
Actually, MySQL. Yes, actually, yes.
هون هنا هسه مثال ضربت بتكوين اليوزرات. الادمنستريتور ومدير النظام يقدر هسه كون 4 مستخدمين، اليو 1 اليو 2 اليو 3 اليو 4. اليوزر الاول اليو 1 يقدر يحدث البيانات بالجدول الاول، لكن ما يقدر يحذف من عندها. من اعطى هاي السماحيه؟ الادمنستريتور اعطاها علما لليو 1. هسه هذا اليو 1 يقدر ايضا يعطي نفس هاي السماحيه لغيره. هذا المقصود بها. ثانك يو دكتور.
Thank you. Yes, as you said, it's actually MySQL. And nowadays, the standard that we are using is the standard of the MySQL. Yes, actually.
By the way دكتور,
Yes.
my friend say 2 things to discuss with you. The first one about the lecture time. Can we change it? Because all of them employees, can we change the time of the lecture? That's the first matter.
Actually, I'm
Second
so
matter
busy, and it
about
was the only time that
language
I
we
was
use to
free.
okay دكتور.
And what was the second point?
The second point about the interface for execution, the instruction for SQL commands. We need the simplified one to complete our jobs. Can we use a SQL Express Edition?
Okay.
I mentioned
First, okay. I think there is some delay in the voice, so first of all, for yes, first of all, for the time of the class, there are many issues here. First of all, I have some other classes in other times. It's so difficult to change it. And the other thing is the students, actually. If I want to change the class, you are, for example, I don't know, maybe 20 students in this class, and it's very hard to change the class and have the agreement of all the students. So it's very difficult. I prefer not to change the class for myself and for yourself, for you also. As I said, it's very difficult to find a new hour and a new time and new day that all the students are agree, and I am agree too. So it's very difficult. The second one is I will let you know. The first thing is MySQL. You can have some, we don't have many programming here. There are small parts. You can have MySQL or SQL Server or any version of SQL to do this. And the other part of the, for example, exercises, we have some exercises that they are just research. And you don't need to, you don't have to run all of the parts of your research. There is just basic instructions that can be made in the SQL. You don't have a big project for this. Yes, please.
اخوان بالنسبه لموضوع توقيت المحاضره تقول هذا الامر خارج عن قدرتي، ما اقدر اغيره. انا اعتقد ان الصعوبه ان نحصل هالشيء هذا. بالنسبة للأمر الثاني، أمر إعازات ال SQL، أنا حكيت بها على مود أبسط واجهة نقدر نحدث إن نستخدم بها لتنفيذ الإعازات. طبعا هي اكو في ال SQL Express Edition، فهي تقول أنا أريد أبسط شيء كل من يقدر أبسط شيء ينصبه بحاسبته وينفذ التمارين، وراح تنطي واجبات لكن واجبات بحثية، يعني ما تريد ما تطلبك بإرسالها إلك أنت لفائدتك الشخصية. ثانك يو دكتور.
Well, thank you. Okay, we have relations or table level. Each relation are, for example, relation are assigned an owner account. And the owner of relation given are privileges on that relation. In general, we can say that we have an admin, an administrator that is the owner of all the databases, all the tables. But in some cases, we have different owners for different tables. The owner of a table is who that created that table. Owner can grant privileges to other users on any owned relation. Sorry. For example, select, retrieval or read privilege on R, modification privilege on R, or references privileges on R. So the owner of a relation can give privileges to other users just on the relations that he or she owned. And the levels of privileges can be just select. He or she, the owner, says that you can just select information. It means you can just read information, or you can modify the information in this. It means just modification in records. Add new record, delete a record, or update a record, and then references privileges on R. You can have the reference. You can have queries that are, for example, that have see the average of something, sum of something, have reference with relation and other things.
بالنسبة لهاي السلايد هنا، توفير الوصول. بالنسبة لي أكو مالكين للجداول، يمكن أن يملك كل الجداول والقاعدة، ويمكن أن يملك جزء من هاي الجداول. هذا المالك يقدر يفوض مستخدمين بهاي الملكية، يعني مثلا يعطي الواحد select، يعطي الواحد modification، يعطي الواحد، فأكو reference أكو مرجعية، خلينا نقول مستوى هرمية بتوزيع الصلاحيات. فهذا العمل كله على الجداول، مالك اكو اساسي هو اللي يمنح يقدر هذا الجديد يقدر يمنح حسب الصلاحيه اللي طاهيه الاعلى من عنده. ثانك يو دكتور.
Thank you. To install SQL, if you have Visual Studio installed on your computer, you can use it, as you know, in the Visual Studio. In Visual C or other things, you have the SQL too. One more.
اخوان، هي ما شرطت اي برنامج، وبراحتك استخدم اي منصه لتحقيق الاعازات. زين، الابسط ان نوحد الوهجه مالتنا هي الموجوده، الاخوان يمكن يعرفوها اللي عندهم خبره بهالشيء هذا، هي الاس كيو ال اكسبريس اديشن، وياها الاس اس ام اس، الاستوديو مانجمنت مال الاس كيو ال، حتى تحقق اعازاتك وتشوفها قدامك. هذا ابسط ما يكون. لا ندخل بتعقيدات لغات البرمجه وشلون تربط بين لغه البرمجه وبين القاعده مال البيانات الاكسس. خلي الامور على بساطتها، وهي ما ارادت من عندنا ترى واجب، قالت انطيكم بس ما مطالبين بيها. انتم ابحثوا، انتم حققوا الاعازات وانتم تكملوا. شكرا لكم.
Thank you. Then we have specifying privileges through the use of views. Consider owner A of relation R and other party B. For example, here A can create view V of R that includes only attributes A and wants B to access. Here we have grant select on V to B. So the owner is A, the name of the owner, A of relation R, and there is some other user. We have another user B. Then A can create a view on R. You remember the views? We had a relation, for example, relation student. And you can define a view on this relation. So anybody who can have access to this view, he or she can actually see the records of this student, but just in this view that is defined here, just some parts of it. For example, some records, some attributes, or some other information in the student relation. The student relation is logical and actually is a real table, but you can define some different views on this relation. Any user that can have access to these views, he or she can have access to logical relation of student just through the window, just like it's just like a window that can have access to this information. And when the user of student, for example, user A, defines a view here, he or she, the owner, can have grant privileges to other users to have access to the student relation just through this view. So, for example, it's instruction. Grant select, it means that he or she gives select privilege on view V to user B. View V is actually a window on relation R and can define the view with a query that selects only those tuples from R that A wants B to access. So it can be defined as some limitations. So A is the owner and decides that which part of the main relation he or she wants to give access to user B. And when the owner decides what parts are confidential and some parts are not sensitive data, the owner can define a view and give the access to user B.
هو تمثيل السماحيات، تخصيص السماحيات. ونفترض بأنه عندك المالك هو A، يملك الجدول اللي هو R أو يسموه ريليشن، مرة يسمونه ريليشن مرة يسمونه جدول. والشخص الثاني هو البي. الأي يقدر يكون فيو. الفيو هي ترى نفسها الاستعلام الموجود عندنا بالأكسس إذا دارسين أكسس، يعني هنا فيو يستخلص بيانات على اليمن على الجدول اللي وبنفس الوقت يريد البي يوصل هاي البيانات. يا إيعاز يستخدمه إيعاز جرانت سيلكت. هذا السيلكت بس يشوف بيانات، هسه منطي سماحية، فقال له جرانت سيلكت اون في تو بي، انطي هاي السماحية معاينة البيانات للبي. إذا هو يقدر يسوي مجموعة من الاستفسارات والكويريز لمن؟ للبي. البي يقدر يمنح بس هاي السماحية اللي انطاها اياه الاي. Thank you very much.
Thank you. As someone, an owner or admin of the system can give can grant and give privileges to other users, he or she can revoke, it means give back the privileges or cancel the privileges, and also can grant the propagation rights of privileges. Revoking of privilege means is useful for granting a privilege temporarily. For example, you want to give a privilege just for 1 week or temporarily for a semester, for example. And then after a while, you can revoke the privileges again. Revoke command used to cancel a privilege. And then we have propagation of privileges using the grant option. If grant option is given, we can grant privilege to other accounts. And then DBMS, database management system, must keep track of how privileges were granted if DBMS allows propagation. I will give you an example in the whiteboard. Consider here we have owner of a table or admin grants. One moment. Grant, select on student to user 1 with grant option. It means that user 1 can have access to a student table. It's the name of table, and just select information. It means just read information. And when you say this one with grant option, with grant option, it means that user 1 can pass this privilege to other one. For example, this instruction has been given by owner of a student table. Then user 1, we have here user 1 can give this instruction. One moment. Grant, select on student to, for example, user 2. So, owner gave a privilege to user 1, then user 1 gave privilege to user 2. So there is an indirect privilege from owner to user 2, and user 2 can see information in the student table. Now, what's the policy when, for example, owner says that revoke, select on student from user 1. It means that the owner of a student wants to cancel this privilege. It may be a cascading instruction. What's the cascading instruction? It means that your owner gave the privilege to user 1, then user 1 gave privilege to user 2. Now the owner has cancelled the privilege that he or she has given to user 1. Maybe the policy can be as this privilege will be cancelled too, because user 1 has no longer the access to the student table. Sometimes this privilege may exist. After you cancel the privilege here, if you cancel this privilege, but you have still the access from user 2 to a student. Why? Because it's not related to the previous granting option. It can be defined in SQL, and the DBMS database management system can handle this. If it wants to cancel all the privileges that user 1 has granted or not, it can be decided whether they want to cancel this one or not.
Can I explain, دكتور؟ أنا هنا هسه هذا السماحيات السحب وتكوين السماحيات. revocation هو إبطال أو سحب السماحية، والبروباغيشن هو توليد أو تكوين السماحيات. سحب السماحيات revoking of privilege هذا يقول ضروري لضمان أو ضروري للمنح للسماحيات بوقت معين، يعني تقدر تمنحها وتقدر تسحبها. الإيعاز اللي يسحب هو الريفوك كوماند، يسحب السماحية أو ينهيها. البروباغيشن هو توليد أو تكوين السماحيات. يا أهل الإيعاز اللي هذا هو الجرانت. الجرانت هذا إذا أعطت مثال عليه هي الدكتورة، من هو مثلا المالك الأونر هسه ينطي سماحية على جدول الطلاب لليوزر واحد المن، لكن with grant option، يعني انطاه سماحية وهاي السماحية ممكن ينطيها لغيره. فهاي الجرانت هسه أنا select on student to U2، إذا الU2 هسه يقدر يشوف البيانات الموجودة بالجدول الستودنت. بعد ما يسحب السماحية اللي فوق select on student from U1، إذا انسحبت الصلاحية من الU1 كل السماحيات الممنوحة للU2 أيضا راح تبطل. Sorry doctor, I have one query.
Yes.
If user 1 revoke the privilege from user 2, user
Yes.
2 automatically cannot access to any relation or table that you want give grant to him. Okay?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
If user 1 revoke the privileges, user 2 can not have access to information that user 1 has granted. For example, maybe user 1 give privilege to access student table to user 2. Then user 3 give access to teacher, for example, to user 2. Then user 1 says revoke all from user 2. It's a keyword here, all. When user 1 says revoke all from user 2, it's just this privilege that will be cancelled. But the other privileges that user 2 has from the other users, for example, or admin or owners, they are still here. It cannot be cancelled. But just the although user one says revoke all from user 2, but all means just privileges that user 1 has or gave to user 2. Just privileges that user 1 gave to user 2, they will be cancelled, but the other privileges are still here. Yes.
Sorry,
Good morning, doctor.
Yes.
My voice clear?
Okay.
Thank you. I have a question. If superior user, like let's say user 1, create
Yes.
2 users with the same privilege, like user 2 and user 3. User 2 and user 3 are the same. Can user 2 cancel that privilege from user 3?
No, it cannot.
So if 2 users have the same privilege, it can't cancel one to other.
Yes, they cannot. Just the user or admin who gave the privilege, he or she can cancel. No,
Super admin.
not user. No, not any other user.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
هون بالنسبة لهاي الوايت بورد هسه اللي عندكم، اليوزر 1 معطي سماحية لليوزر 2 على جدول الستودنت. عندما يسحب هاي الصلاحية من عنده راح يسحب بس سماحيته على الجدول الستودنت. يعني إذا اليوزر 3 معطي سماحية لليوزر 2 على الجدول تيتشر راح تبقى موجودة. يعني خلينا نقول الهرمية بإلغاء السماحيات. اليوزر 1 من يلغي بس على اليو 2، ما له علاقة باليو 3. زين، فأي سماحية اليوتيوب محصلها من واحد ثاني أو ثالث ما له علاقة بها، إلى علاقة بس السماحيات المعطي إياه هو. اليو1 ايش معطي لليوتيوب هو له علاقة بالسماحيات. إذا انسحبت راح نسحب. اليو3 نفس الشيء، إذا سحب السماحية من اليوتيوب أيضا راح تنسحب بس السماحية المعطي إياه، وما له علاقة بالسماحيات المعطي إياه اليو1. ثانك يو دكتور.
Thank you. Maybe go back to slides. I want to finish this one if I can. There is a simple grant syntax, as in the whiteboard I said, grant, then privilege type. Grant is a keyword and privilege type, and you can have a list of privileges, for example, select and insert and other privileges. On is the capital words are actually keywords. On object type, to users or user, and with grant options, it means that user can give the privilege to the other users. I think it's clear. For example, here we have granting and revoking privileges. DBA, it means database administrator or admin, gives some privileges to A1. Here it says grant, create, there is some I think yes. I want to change this one. One moment. Grant on something, for example. to A1. Grant create to A1. No. Sorry. It can just be grant create to A1. It means that create table. It's create table. Sorry. It was my mistake. It's create table. It means that user A1 can create new tables, can make new tables from now. Or this one, create schema, example, authorization A1. It means create schema means there is a privilege that one user can create new schema. Schema means tables, views, or indexes, and other information. Or A1 can create new tables. A1 creates relation, EMP, for example, employee, and department of a company. So A1 has privilege to create a table. Why? Because database admin gave this privilege to A1. Now A1 can create two relations, for example, one employee relation and one department relation, and then A1 to A2. It said he or she said grant, insert, and delete on employee and department. Here is a to A2. A1 says that A2 user, it means user 2, can do insert and delete on employee table and department table from now. A2 was not given the with grant option. It means A2 cannot give privilege to another user. So, admin gave a privilege to user A1, that user A1 can create a table, create a schema, can define new tables, views, indexes, all the things. Now A1 uses his privilege to create two new relations, one employee and one department. And then user A1 gave some privileges to user 2. What privileges? For example, just insert and delete on employee and department to user 2. But user 2 cannot give the same privileges to other users. Why? Because user 2 has no grant option. And user 2 can just do insert and delete, and cannot, for example, select information or update information. Just insert and delete.
يس دكتور. طبعا بالنسبة لمدير النظام DBA يمنح، هنا راح أول شيء يمنح اليوزر أو المستخدم الأيوان لتكوين الجداول. grant create table to A1. هذا إعاز انطاء إمكانية تكوين جداول، وكذلك انطاء إعازات لتكوين الفيوز، الاندكسز، السكيما، زين، السماحيات للأيوان هاي انطى هي. هاي صار عندنا اثنين. هسه هنا الأيوان صار عنده إمكانية أن يكون جداول. بالفقرة الثانية هسه هذه هنا أيوان create relation employee and department، يعني يكون جدولين، الجدول الأول اللي هو employee والجدول الثاني اللي هو department. هنا النقطة الثالثة، الأيوان عنده قرار أن يعطي بعض صلاحياته للأي2. شو انطاه من الصلاحيات؟ انطاه insert و delete فقط. insert و delete على الجدولين الاثنين هم الامبلوي نمبر، الامبلويمنت والديبارتمنت اللي من انطاه اياه للاي 2. لكن لاحظ انطاه اياه بدون with grant option، يعني هسه الاي 2 هاي السماحيات اللي اعطاه اياه الاي 1 ما يقدر ينطيها الواحد ثالث. ثانك يو دكتور.
Thank you. And just that one. Maybe user 1 give privilege to user 3 with grant option. For example, here it says grant select on employee and department to A3 with grant option. It means that A3 can given the with grant option, so A3 can give privilege to other users. For example, A3 to A4, grant select on employee to A4, and A4 cannot propagate the select privilege. Why? Because A4 doesn't have grant option. I'll explain again here. A1 has created employee and department, and A1 has given just select on employee and department to A3 with grant option. So A3 can give just the select privilege to other users. For example, here A3 to A4 grant select on employee and not department, for example, because A3 can have select on both of the tables, but just give select on employee to A4. But A4 cannot propagate the select privilege to other one because he doesn't have grant option.
اخوان بالنسبة للمثال الثاني هسه هنا الاي 1 الى الاي 3، هنا راح يستخدم مع نفس الايعاد اللي يستخدمه ويل 2، لكن يضيف له الوذ جرانت اوبشن. يعني هنا راح يعطيه صلاحية المنح اليوزر ثاني، فلذلك الاي 3 راح ينطي نفس السماحية مالته للاي 4. ليش؟ لانه استخدم بالتكوين مالته استخدم الوذ جرانت اوبشن. لذلك الاي 4 هسه يقدر بس شنطه وذ جرانت اللي منطاه اياه للاي 3 راح يشوف البيانات الموجوده، بس الاي 4 ما يشوف او ما يقدر يكون هالشيء هذا الواحد رابع غيره او خامس غيره. ليش؟ لانه انطاه اياه وذ جرانت اوبشن.
Thank you. Any question? You have question?
I have a question, please.
Yes.
In this case, can A3 give a granted to A4?
A3 to A4, what? What grant?
Grant. Can give it a grant? Yes. Yes.
Yes, grant option. Yes, with grant option.
So he have the privilege to give a grant option to any other user because
Yes.
he has it from A1.
Yes, yes.
Clear. Thank you so
Yes,
much.
we
Dara.
can. Yes. Okay. If there is no another question, I will let other examples for the next session. Well, thank you, and until the next session. The next session will be in the